Animosity Advent Stories. It's simple. Selwyn was silent as she focused her entire mind upon the task at hand. Small wooden parts carved with care to mimic parts that would later be cast in metal. The clockwork mechanism was simple compared to some, but its linkages were still a delicate dance that required the correct size, strength, and especially timing. She tested the wooden mock-up, cycling the mechanism before making a note in a dog-eared and well-worn notebook. Then she reset the mechanism and activated it again, and again, and again, making a note each time where the simple paint she put on the parts was wearing off. The dimmer light of night giving way to the bright dawn of the new day passed unremarked as she stayed at her bench, hunched over the mechanism and her notes, until at last a single piece broke. She checked to make sure this was the only break, and then made a careful search of the floor. Why and how such pieces could find their way into the most inexplicable places was an inquiry she would have to resolve at another time, but vowed to do so after finding the piece that had fallen where it should be impossible to land. Design 72, Seer Variant 3. On the 1537th cycle, Seer catch at 3 hairs length from the bend. Clean break along the expected stress line. Probable cause, material fatigue. She placed the wooden parts into a carefully labeled bin and slid it back into a small cubby on her wall. She closed her eyes then and imagined the exact moment of the break, the stresses involved, the forces at work, time slowing in her mind as she recreated the exact moment and watched it over and over again. Her hand reached for where she knew her pencil would be, and Design 73 started to take shape on the surface of her workbench. Design 134, Seer Variant 23. On the 2783rd cycle, main holding pin worn down to the point where gear mechanisms deviate 2 hairs length when resetting, causing failure to engage Seer catch in proper time. Probable cause: lateral stress upon gear when resetting. More support needed on cam. Design 214, Seer Variant 42. On the 5731st cycle, housing cracked. Probable cause: impact stress when I dropped it. Design evaluation must now include drop testing to account for this external variable. It took till Design 453 before she was satisfied enough to cast the parts in metal. With the testing notes to inform her first choices in both type and refinement of the metals, and then another 57 design iterations to get the alloys narrowed down to her satisfaction. Her hand shook lightly, and she set down the mechanism. Fatigue entered into her thoughts as she looked to her hand for an answer as to why it shook. It annoyed her to realize she needed to set aside her work for the idiotic requirements of the flesh, like eating, sleeping, bathing, and other wastes of precious time. But the shaking hand was insistent, to be joined in quick order by the ache of her eyes and the deep rumble of her stomach. Feeling betrayed at a fundamental level, she satisfied each need as she was wont to satisfy it, which is to say, begrudgingly. Stale bread toasted over her smelting fire and then made palatable enough with butter, and a nap upon a small bench in the corner. She grumpily hoped that would suffice for the week. Design 631, Metal Composition 17, Striker Test 53. Once again, a failure of the fulminate caps provided by the alchemists leave much to be desired. Failure rates of 1 in every 10, and of course they continue to insist it's because of an incorrect striker force. I have kept examples of every failed and fired cap and sent them along with my detailed notes to the project manager in the hopes they can resolve the issue. Nevertheless, the mechanism is ready to be tried on a full prototype weapon. Design 753, Metal Composition 32, Barrel 13, Field Test 2. They desire that the cocking mechanism of my trigger should also be made to also rotate the revolving cartridge magazine. Simply, they said, as if it were that simple. Why can they not fathom that they should be able to easily turn the magazine to the desired chamber and then cock and fire the mechanism without having to link the two? Their hand is right there, doing not more than gripping the stock between shots. Why even have a heavy rotating magazine in the first place? A brass-encased cartridge inserted into and then removed from a more simple chamber would be much more agile and could even contain a preset fulminate cap. A new idea quickly took shape in a mad scrawling of pencil lines upon the very workbench itself. She didn't have time to find paper. Design 1A.